glamping customers like to go glamping because they want the experience of being out in nature, or they just want to try something they've never tried before. And although many like it, let's face it, it wouldn't be the raging trend it is unless they did, but a few don't, mainly because of unexpected encounters with wildlife, sounds they're not used to, the darkness of nature, and things they just maybe haven't experienced before, especially if they come from the city. So the host of the unique accommodation might find themselves handling an issue and dealing with a complaint that isn't their fault, one they have no power to change. So how can a business owner handle the situation, mitigate what's happening, and stop things from escalating? This is episode 16. Welcome to the Glamping Americas podcast, the place for inspiration about the business of upscale camping, glamping, and luxury outdoor guest accommodations. I'm Sarah Riley from the Glamping Academy, and I'm working with my friends at the Glamping Show Americas to share everything you need to know about new trends, events, business models, and investment potential in the rapidly growing world of luxury camping that delivers an experience. Interest in this industry is exploding, so if you want to be the first to find out what's hot and what's not, subscribe here and check out the show notes for more exciting news and links. And be sure to add the next Glamping Show Americas to your calendar for the 1st and 2nd of October 2024 near Denver, Colorado. I can't wait. To start off today, I want to share a little story. About the Glamping show last year, the organisers were kind enough to arrange a networking session. So this was late in the evening with drinks and open fires and an opportunity for all of us to get together and talk about our wins and successes of the past few years, what we'd been working on, the projects, our hopes and dreams for the future, and pretty much everything else in between. Of course, when you're doing that, you are also going to be sharing some of the things that didn't go quite as well as expected, and maybe things that had surprised us during those years of operation. So I was hanging out with a few of my own members from my glamping club, and some of them were actually talking about the wins they'd had and some of the things that had surprised them over the past few years. So some of my members, they've gone from having a business that's just written on a piece of paper, so their business plan, to actually having a physical business that's operating, bringing in money, attracting customers, and gaining reviews for the services they've provided. They've actually achieved so much, and I could not be more proud. It's a fantastic group of people. And one particular member who has done amazing things over the last few years, we were talking about some of her wins and things that she'd experienced when her phone rang. And on the other end of the phone was a customer who was currently staying at her property. Now, she operates this property from a distance from where she lives. She has all of her systems set up so she can do that successfully. Up until this point, it had been operating so smoothly because of the preparations and everything she'd put in place. So while we were sitting there having a chat and the phone rang, and what happened next was totally unexpected for her. Her guest who had arrived had maybe become a little bit anxious about some of the wildlife that was there at the site. There were a few wild cats present, and some of them, we think, reading between the lines, had maybe been fed by previous guests. So they were coming around expecting more food. As a result, this new guest, who wasn't very good with wildlife, was staying in this very wild place in this amazing accommodation and was getting a little bit fearful about these animals prowling around. So I'm not talking about big wild cats. I'm not talking about lions and tigers. I'm talking about tiny domesticated cats, the small domesticated type of breed. But obviously in the wild, because something had happened, the cat had got free and they'd been breeding, and there's lots of little wild cats running around asking for food. You know, they're going for the easy option. Let's target the humans who might be able to feed me. So some of the cats were in the area and they were obviously meowing, hanging around, and this guest had got really anxious about it. Now, one of the things that we cannot avoid is the fact that some people can deal with small things like this better than others. And sometimes you're going to get someone stay at your site and they need a little bit more hand-holding, is how I like to describe it, to help them enjoy their experience and to alleviate any fears that might come up along the way. One of the other things that often happens is people say, "Oh my goodness, it's so dark. I'm not used to it being quite so dark. And what are all those noises? What are all those noises I can hear out in the forest?" So some people, especially from the city, get a bit worried about the sounds they're hearing, how dark it is. They want to have more lights. And obviously, that's not what you're wanting to provide, because you want to provide a quality stay in nature where people can really unwind, de-stress, and enjoy their time in the open air in the facilities that you provided. But, as I've said, some people just cannot get their head wrapped around the fact that they are sharing that space with lots of animals, and all of those animals are safe. And if there are any animals in the area that you have to give an extra amount of respect for, such as bears in certain parts of America, then obviously there's things you need to do to make sure that you are going to be doing the things you need to do to respect the fact that you are stepping into their part of the world. So back to the glamping show last year, we found ourselves sitting around a fire talking about the issue that this particular glamping host was dealing with the person who was on the phone to demand why these animals were there and what she should do about it because she was worried about it. So essentially, it was the beginning of what could be a complaint that could escalate to a significant issue. So of course, the host, the owner, wasn't there, because she had everything in place that she didn't need to be there. And she was actually at the glamping show. She was educating herself on lots of the things being shared at the show, in the seminars, but also she was networking and looking for other services that she wanted to buy in and to offer on her site. So how do you deal with it? Before I go any further, I obviously have to tell you that the situation was dealt with incredibly well, to a level of perfection. And as a result, the glamping host concerned, she had no problems at all mitigating what was going on at her site, which was many miles away while she was in Colorado. So that's what I hope for you if this ever comes up in the future when you are dealing with customers and you're trying to tailor the customer services that you offer and to get the guest satisfaction right up there at 5 stars so that you won't get any negative reviews. And if you do get some concerns, then you know how to deal with them, because it's inevitable. Something's going to happen in the future that is going to mean you might get a complaint, you might get a bad review, or you might get someone asking you questions in a difficult situation that you weren't expecting, because that person's expectations are different to your own and are different to the type of service that you're offering. So while it's true that some glamping customers are drawn to the experience of being out in nature, many do feel uncomfortable about being out there. And actually, they're very unprepared when they're faced with unexpected encounters with wildlife, like the one I've just shared. Particularly if they come from the city. So they come from city living, they don't spend much time outside in their evenings, and certainly they don't spend much time outside when they're getting ready to go to sleep. And so there are some things that you can do to help the guests kind of gracefully get used to their experience, get used to the things that they might hear, see or do while they're staying on your site. So there's a few proactive steps that you can take to help you with this. So I've got a few suggestions here that I'm going to share with you, but I would have to say this is entirely up to you as to whether you decide to use it, because These are just examples of what some other sites have used to help mitigate situations that might need reeling in and to stop them escalating further, but also is about proactively maybe educating people before they come, getting them excited about the new sounds, smells, and everything else they might be experiencing that they'll find a little bit uncomfortable at times. So one of the things that I've found that works really well is obviously education and communication. Many site owners now provide a WhatsApp business number to their guests so people can WhatsApp them at any time of the day. Now, some of you might say, but I do not want to be on call every minute of the day. Well, if you don't have a night warden, then it's going to be you who would step into the shoes of the night warden. So the person on call, if anything goes wrong, if there's a fire, goodness, let's hope not. If there's a flood, if a tent falls down, if a tree falls down, or there's a big bang, or there's some terrible weather that you weren't expecting, all of those things that people might need a bit of help with late at night. You have to have a way of people being able to contact you if an emergency is happening. So allowing people to have some way of communicating with you can alleviate their fears in these smaller, less urgent situations. In the case of the story I shared, because she'd already shared with her guests her WhatsApp number, and because she was at the end of the phone immediately as soon as the guest had shared her fears, and she was able to alleviate those fears by saying, oh yes, I'm very sorry, this is actually something that has been happening recently and we're working on how to deal with it, but they're quite harmless, they won't cause you any problem, please don't feed them, and actually they're really good for keeping away other pests, so they're your friend and they won't harm you in any way. And all of those kinds of reassuring things that she needed to say to make sure that they felt they'd been listened to. So she offered guidance on what to do, and also it helped minimize the negativity that that guest was feeling. One of the things I've also seen other sites doing is in the guest communication pack that they send out to guests before their visit, so before they've even come, they tailor some of the education and communication aspects they put in place with the idea of making them feel excited about their stay. So they may share a really good quality recording in that pack of some of the noises you might hear on our site. And they even do it along the lines of if there's children coming or there's children allowed on the site, they may even give them a questionnaire on the types of nature they may be able to spot while they're there. Or they might say, please match up the sounds to the animals so that you can see who you may come in to contact with while you're staying on our site. So it's a great way of preparing people for what they might hear and see while they're there, so they're not actually going to feel unsafe when they might turn up on site and suddenly late at night they're hearing these strange noises and seeing all these animals. Of course, every site needs to have safety measures in place for things like bears and other safety measures to make sure that there are barriers to prevent certain wildlife from entering living areas and everything else to keep guests feeling safe. A couple of things that you can do as well is to maybe provide guests with essentials like flashlights or insect repellents, or if you are particularly suffering from mosquitoes and midges and the other biting flies, maybe you should think about giving people in the area where they sleep some kind of netting to help protect them when they're asleep at night. It means they won't go home with a million bites all over them, complaining about how they got totally eaten alive by the wildlife at the glamping site they stayed at. It's definitely going to give you a better review at the end of it when you know that you've actually given people as much as they need to be able to get a good night's sleep. Another thing I've seen another site do when there are quite a few noises at night Some people can't actually sleep with those noises, so they provided them with some earplugs, and these are disposable earplugs. They're complimentary. Nobody needs to pay for them. They're always in the unit when people come to stay, and they can find out information about all of these things in the guest pack that they provide before they even come along. So this is a digital guest book, so they're able to look at the digital guest book to see what they might encounter while they come and what equipment they might need, and they can also see what equipment the site owner provides for them. So it really helps to alleviate any of these issues before they come. And then, of course, while they're there, it's an easy place to gather the information, so they don't have to keep contacting staff or the owner. So, of course, anyone who's going to be at the end of the phone during the night when a customer might get in touch and say, I'm worried about this thing, they obviously have to be trained in how to speak to the guests that late at night. So to actually dismiss their fears and say, oh, nothing to worry about, you'll be fine, isn't necessarily the right way to do it. You've got to allow the guests to feel that they've been heard, that they've been listened to, that their complaint has been dealt with, and they haven't just been dismissed as someone who maybe is being a bit silly in that moment. People like to feel that they've had someone there who's listened to them, and just that one thing can stop people from actually escalating a complaint or leaving a bad review. Things you do not want to have happen. So even if you feel that the guest shouldn't be complaining, the best thing you can do is to listen to what they have to say and help them feel heard. And obviously keep that communication open and reassure them that they can contact you at any time, day or night, whenever they may be feeling a little bit anxious about what's happening, so that you can help them through that situation. You could also customize an experience based on feedback that you're receiving from your guests when they first arrive. So it's something that many people do when they first start up, is to listen to what their early guests have to say. So you kind of call it a soft launch. You get people in, you don't do a lot of advertising at the beginning because you want to get the feedback from your early guests about what they loved about their stay and maybe what they didn't like quite so much. And then you can adapt and tailor your services based on that, especially when it comes to noise and nature and darkness and other things that might be making your guests feel a little bit uncomfortable. So it's a great way of being able to help your guests feel that they are being heard. And it's also a fantastic way for you to build your services to the level that everyone's going to be happy with, that will encourage lots and lots of amazing reviews from the beginning. Even if someone hasn't had a very great experience, if they feel the owner has been listening to what they had to say and has responded really quickly and has been fantastic with everything that they've done, they will still give a good review, even though they have potential issues or discomfort along the way. So really, here are the steps. If you have had a customer complain about things that are not within your control, you need to think about the steps that are right for you. But here are some of the things that you can do, and particularly how you can guide your staff to respond to that if you're not there to respond yourself. So, of course, number one is that you acknowledge the complaint. So you begin at this point and express empathy for the discomfort that they have gone through and the inconvenience that they may have experienced. So let them know that their feedback is really valuable and that they will be taken seriously. Now, here is a moment where you have to be careful, because if you feel that their complaint has no grounds, if you feel they shouldn't be complaining because they're just complaining about nature sounds and, don't they realise this is a forest and of course there's going to be those noises, of course there's going to be those animals around. It doesn't matter. You still have to acknowledge that they felt uncomfortable, even if it was for reasons that you felt they didn't really have any need to feel uncomfortable at that point. It's the first step to completely taking the hot air out of a situation that could get so bad it could explode. You can totally and utterly dissipate this and get it nipped in the bud from the beginning by just simply acknowledging the complaint. Then just say sorry. I'm so sorry that this particular thing has been a bad experience for you. Offer a sincere apology. So even if you don't think they need an apology or that they should get an apology, just apologize. So that is often enough, acknowledging the complaint and apologizing. But then it's often a wise idea to explain the nature of glamping, remind them that they are in nature and that these things do happen and it's very unpredictable. Nature isn't a regular thing. We don't know what will happen. There's a lot of different elements. And sometimes it's wise to provide different examples of things that you can do to help them to feel better. So give them a few options, maybe allow them to choose something that will make them feel better. The other thing that works really well, but you will probably find yourself fighting against your inner intuition, is to encourage them to communicate with you more. So many hosts who have received a complaint, they try to deal with it, they feel they fixed it, and then they don't want to talk to the guest anymore. They kind of fight to not have to communicate with them anymore because they kind of think, if I communicate with them, it's just going to open up that line of communication and they're just going to complain at me again about stuff that I can't control. And I totally understand that you might be feeling that way. But actually, if you encourage them to communicate with you, you will find that that will dissipate anything else that they might have an issue with. And you'll be able to deal with it quickly without them getting all kind of quietly in the background upset about what's going on. And if they feel they can't get in touch with you because you're putting blocks up, then again, it's going to create this sense of, well, I had these issues and the host wouldn't help me and I feel I'm going to give them a bad review. Just by encouraging them to stay in touch and to maybe even you to reach out to them if you don't hear anything, just to say, is everything all right? I thought I'd get in touch. This is enough to absolutely dissipate the situation. Following up is really important. If the worst thing happens and a guest does give you a bad review, especially if they give you a complaint that is public and is seen by the public, know this. A lot of people who look at those reviews, they do not necessarily look at the review and believe everything in the review as negative and real. People are now a lot more savvy about the fact that people leave bad reviews for reasons that maybe are uncalled for. So what they do instead is they judge the situation based on how the owner responds to that negative review. So if the owner responds in a really positive way, highlighting a lot of the things that were done to try to help the guest while they were staying there, to say that they hope the guest comes back again soon, to give a friendly, upbeat and positive and constructive response to that negative review, it makes all the difference. In fact, you can completely dissipate the impact of that negative review by your response. So do not ignore a bad complaint or a bad review. If you think even that you did everything within your power to make it good for that guest and yet they still gave you a bad review, don't worry about it. Respond to them with empathy and understanding and be proactive in your approach, and you will find that this will have no impact on your business whatsoever. So getting reviews for a business isn't just advisable, it's actually the linchpin of establishing credibility for a business, especially at the beginning when a business has just recently launched. Because what it does is those reviews foster trust and will drive your bookings. So at the beginning, the complaint I often hear from people who have just launched is, I'm trying to get reviews because I know that's why I'm not getting bookings, but I can't get reviews without getting bookings. And some of my early guests aren't actually leaving a response, or they're not leaving a review or whatever. And so I'm really struggling to get more bookings. There is a way around this. One of the things you can do is to obviously make sure that your lines of communication are open from the beginning for all of your guests. That's number one. So people feel that they want nothing more than to actually help support you as a new business owner by giving you a positive review. The other thing, of course, is at the beginning when you're doing the soft launch for your business, is to actually invite some people to come and stay in return for their honest opinion about your service and your accommodation. And you can even specify where they leave it. So it could be on any of your booking platforms, it could be on your website, it could be on your Google reviews, whatever it might be. It's a way of saying, let's have some reciprocity here. If I give you this, and it might be a free stay or money off a stay or anything else, then I'd really like it if you would give me your honest opinion. Now, of course, you cannot ask people to give you a positive review. You can only ask them to give you an honest opinion. So be really careful about the language that you use if you choose to do that. It's certainly something good to do at the beginning. But what strategies can you use to get some more customer reviews? If you don't do this at the beginning, then of course it means that you've missed out on the opportunity to get all of those lovely reviews from the very start of you opening the doors to your business. And from experience, I know that unless you ask people to do it, they will not do it. So they very rarely do it voluntarily. They often do it a bad review if they really feel that they've been driven to do a bad review because their concerns haven't been heard while they've stayed with you. But often people don't actually go out of their way and leave a good review, even though they've had an amazing stay, an amazing experience, and they're thinking of coming back again. You have to ask them to do a review. So always ask your guests to do that for you. So that's the first thing. Obviously, number one on your list, always be proactive about requesting feedback. Have it in your post-guest system to ask for that review. So this can be automated, so it doesn't need to be something that you think about. It's part of your system. You can streamline the process. You can make sure that your wording is perfect. You can reach out and appeal to the personal side, appeal to the fact that you are a new business, and give them clear instructions about where they need to leave their review. So on what platform, and give them the links to make it really easy. You can also ask your staff to ask your guests when they're leaving in a friendly manner to leave a departing review. So a great way of doing this is in the guest book, maybe on the checkout slip, or anything else that you do. If you have a receptionist and a reception area, this is obviously going to be easier. If you have an honesty shop, you can have your guest book in there. Or you can just send people an email or a message or a WhatsApp or something to say, we'd love it if you would leave a review to share your thoughts around our service. It helps us and it helps us to improve our services in the future. And we'd love to invite you back to stay again. That's also a place for you to offer money off a future stay. You can give a percentage off a future stay. Make sure you include a code so that you know that they are a guest who stayed before, so it's a repeat booking. And that's really good too, because again, it helps with reciprocity. They're giving you a review. In return, you're giving them a bit of money off of a future stay. This really helps you with your business, and it helps them feel that they've been looked after. And of course, it means you'll get a direct booking in the future and you won't have to pay any commissions or any booking platforms if you take that approach. So there's all kinds of other incentives you can use as well. You can actually offer them free access to the hot tub on their next stay, or you can offer them entry into a prize draw with a fantastic prize, and they'll get into that draw if they offer their honest opinion on your services. However, I must remind you that there are some compliances you need to focus on in terms of the review platforms and the guidelines to maintaining authenticity and credibility with your reviews and requesting those reviews. So be careful about the kind of language that you use in those requests. The other thing, of course, is to get those reviews that we all absolutely love. And that's when they share things on social media, because you are able to access it through their social media account. And it shows that it is from a real person. A real person is sharing it on social media. And in some ways, that's even better than putting it on the review platform that you're asking them to put it on. So here, of course, is about having your own business hashtag. Making sure at the beginning that it's really easy to spell, it's easy to remember, no one else is using it on social media, and it's something that you talk about all over your site, and that you have hopefully got some Instagrammable, TikTokable areas where people will be taking pictures of themselves. They'll be sharing it on social media with your hashtag. They'll be saying, I've had the most amazing stay on this site. And of course, they look amazing in the picture because you've got this wonderful Instagrammable area. Then whenever you get a good review with that hashtag, you can copy and paste it and put it on your website, put it in other parts of your social media channels. It will enhance the way you are seen on social media, your own visibility of your own business, and it will also enhance the reputation within the industry. So as with everything, it's really important to make sure that you're going to create some kind of action plan around your reviews, because there's no point in getting all of this fantastic feedback from your customers if you're not going to do anything about the negatives, and also, of course, promote the positives. So continuous monitoring is great, but make sure you always have some kind of action plan. And in fact, all you're going to do in the future is attract fantastic reviews, and you're going to be so proud of everything that you're getting back from your guests. They're going to be happy, you're going to be happy, and it's going to attract in lots of wonderful guest bookings in the future. So I hope that's helped you in some way. I'm really looking forward to sharing the next episode with you. It's always published the first of the month, each month. And of course, I couldn't end this episode without saying, please leave a review about the episode. I'd love to hear what you think, what's worked for you and what hasn't, and what you would do in the future if you got a bad review. Take care. I hope you come and join me here again soon.